Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to the 8th episode of the U.S. History GCast as presented by Gibsonian Institute. We are moving on to our second day of the state executive branch. First day talked primarily about the governor and a little bit about the lieutenant governor. What we are going to be looking at today, if we head over to our objectives, is the 5 constitutional officers in the executive branch, excluding the governor. So similar to what you might see in the U.S. cabinet, this is the Illinois version of that, if you would like a comparison. All right, so of course, our objective, list in detail the 5 constitutional officers in the executive branch. We will have a check for knowledge at the end of this, posted on Google Classroom. Make sure you find the exit slip just to make sure that you understand who's doing what jobs. And that's what we're going to outline today in these slides. Our first one, we mentioned her yesterday, the lieutenant governor, current one, Juliana Stratton. So just to give you a little bit of what does it say in the Illinois Constitution is their job, and to kind of break it down a little bit more simpler terms so that you can understand it. So make sure you're following along diligently with however note method you're taking, and we'll get started. So again, current lieutenant governor is Juliana Stratton. And as according to the Illinois Constitution, the lieutenant governor shall perform the duties and exercise the powers in the executive branch that may be delegated to him or her by the governor and that may be prescribed by law. That phrase at the end there is to kind of cover all the bases that may be prescribed by law. You're going to see that in just about every single person's position. All right. So to get a little bit more specific, the lieutenant governor serves as the governor in case the current governor passes away, becomes disabled, is impeached, resigns, or is absent from the state for a prolonged period of time. So basically, they're the second in command, just like the vice president. The order of succession would be after the governor, it goes lieutenant governor, and then it'll be the officer following this, which will be, not the officer following this, it would be the Secretary of State. All right. One more thing that's worth mentioning about the lieutenant governor would be that the lieutenant governor chairs several different boards and councils and serves on many committees and acts as the governor's representative in these committees. So Juliana Stratton is going to kind of be present on a lot of these councils and boards so that the governor is able to have he's able to allocate a lot of his time to other capabilities, but also he has someone that he can trust to listen in on all these committees and act from there. Moving on to our next one, the Attorney General. Our current Attorney General is Kwame Raoul. And as written in the Constitution, Kwame Raoul, the current Attorney General, shall be the legal officer of the state and shall have the duties and powers prescribed by the law. So let's see what duties and powers are prescribed by the law. First, he will provide legal and criminal investigation for the state, including investigating consumer complaints. So if there's something happening within Illinois on a broader scale, more than just one person's affected by this, Mr. Raoul is going to look into that. And then also, the Attorney General provides legal representation for the state and advises the state offices of their legal rights. So basically, Kwame Raoul in this instance is the person that's in charge of making sure the state is staying up to the legal rights and representing the state in case you might hear of law cases where it's a certain name versus the state of Illinois. This would be represented by the Attorney General or by the Attorney General's office in that case. Moving on to the Secretary of State. Our current Secretary of State and longtime Secretary of State is Jesse White. According to the Illinois Constitution, the Secretary of State shall maintain the official records of the acts of the General Assembly and such official records of the executive branch as provided by law. He or she shall keep the Great Seal of the state of Illinois and perform other duties that may be prescribed by law. And some, not all, but some specifics that you'll definitely, you're aware of, I'm sure, but maybe not really understood why his name's on it. On your parents' and mine, driver's license, there's a stamp or a seal that says Illinois Secretary of State, and I'll have Mr. White's signature on it. So that is one duty of the Secretary of State, is to issue licenses for motor vehicles and for their drivers. but it also is to register and give licenses to businesses in Illinois. Now moving on to our last two, and they're very closely tied, and it has to do with the financials of the state, the comptroller and the treasurer. The current comptroller is Susana Mendoza. The comptroller shall maintain the state's central fiscal accounts, fiscal would mean financial or money accounts, and order payments into and out of funds held by the treasurer. And the treasurer, the current one is Michael Fredericks. The treasurer shall be responsible for the safekeeping and investment of monies and securities deposited with him or her for their disbursement upon the order of the comptroller. So they're going to work closely together, the comptroller being in charge of the state's fiscal accounts, and then the treasurer is going to be the person in charge of safekeeping the monies and securities deposited by the state. So there's a slight difference, and those are going to be the main differences between the two of them. All right. So as I mentioned before, there is a exit slip to complete, basically asking you what does each person do, and then that's what we're looking for here, is to make sure that we understand each of the different 5 officers and their duties to fulfill according to the Illinois Constitution. So if you have any questions regarding this content, you can comment on the video below. You can comment on Google Classroom. You can email me directly through your school email address. Or, of course, you can come see me during the office hours from 12:30 to 1. So come forward with any questions if you have any. Other than that, I look forward to seeing you again soon.